America, the land of opportunity, faces a silent crisis, the wealth trap. It's a paradox, really. The relentless pursuit of wealth by a select few might actually be undermining the very system that allows them to prosper. Imagine a game of Jenga. Each block represents a part of our economy. Now picture a few people hoarding most of the blocks at the top. Seems stable at first, right? But keep pulling from the bottom and the whole thing collapses. That's the wealth trap in a nutshell. When wealth concentrates at the top, everyone else has less to spend. Less spending means businesses suffer. Fewer jobs, lower wages, the whole economy sputters. It's like those rich folks are sawing off the branch they're sitting on. And guess what? They'll be coming down with the rest of us. Think of it this way. You can't sell a luxury yacht to someone who can barely afford rent. The wealthy rely on a healthy middle class to buy their products and services. But when the gap between the haves and have-nots becomes a chasm, the whole system starts to crumble. This isn't some socialist rant, it's basic economics. The wealth trap is a ticking time bomb, and if we don't defuse it, we're all going to feel the blast. Remember that whole dollar is king thing? Yeah, about that. The mighty greenback might be looking a little pale these days. See, the value of our currency depends on a lot of factors. One of them is how much faith the rest of the world has in our economy. And frankly, things aren't looking so hot. Our national debt is skyrocketing. Inflation is eating away at our savings, and the gap between the rich and everyone else is widening. It's like we're throwing a party and putting it all on a credit card with a ridiculously high interest rate. Now imagine other countries start to get a little nervous. They see our economic wobbliness and think, maybe the dollar isn't such a safe bet anymore. Suddenly, they're not so keen on lending us money or buying our stuff. The dollar weakens, imports become more expensive. That iPhone you're eyeing? Suddenly it costs an arm and a leg. And remember all that debt we racked up? Yeah, it just got a whole lot more expensive to pay back. It's a vicious cycle that can spiral out of control pretty quickly. Let's talk about Social Security and Medicare. These programs are like the grandparents of our social safety net. Reliable, comforting, and always there for you, or at least they're supposed to be. For millions of Americans, these programs aren't just some abstract government handout. They're the difference between retiring with dignity and spending their golden years struggling to make ends meet. Social Security provides a vital lifeline for seniors, disabled individuals, and their families. It's not a luxury, it's basic income security. Medicare ensures that older Americans can get the health care they need without going bankrupt. These programs are the bedrock of our social contract. But here's the kicker. They're under threat. Some politicians see these programs as a drain on the budget, a handout to the undeserving. They're constantly trying to cut benefits, raise the retirement age, and privatize these vital services. It's like watching someone try to dismantle the foundation of a house while people are still living in it. Dismantling Social Security and Medicare wouldn't just be cruel, it would be economic suicide. It would push millions of seniors into poverty, overwhelm our healthcare system, and devastate families across the country. It's time we stop treating these essential programs like bargaining chips and start protecting them like the national treasures they are. Think the wealth trap is a new problem? Think again. History is littered with examples of societies that learned this lesson the hard way. Remember the Roman Empire? They built a vast empire on the backs of slaves and conquered peoples. The wealthy elite lived in opulent villas surrounded by luxury while the majority struggled to survive. Sound familiar? Or how about the French Revolution? Let them eat cake indeed. The French monarchy's lavish lifestyle and callous disregard for the suffering of the poor led to a bloody uprising. Heads literally rolled. It's a stark reminder that extreme inequality and a disconnect from the realities of everyday people can have explosive consequences. These historical examples might seem distant, but the lessons are as relevant as ever. The wealth trap isn't just an economic problem, it's a recipe for social unrest and instability. When a tiny minority hoards the wealth while the majority struggles, it creates a breeding ground for resentment, anger, and ultimately, rebellion. Section 5. A roadmap to recovery. Escaping the wealth trap. So how do we escape this mess? How do we dismantle the wealth trap before it dismantles us? Well, it's going to take a multi-pronged approach, a whole-of-society effort. We need to rewrite the rules of the game to create an economy that works for everyone, not just those at the very top. First things first, we need to tackle income inequality. The gap between the rich and everyone else has been widening for decades, and it's time to reverse that trend. We need policies that promote fair wages, like raising the minimum wage, strengthening unions, and closing loopholes that allow corporations to dodge taxes. Think of it like this. A rising tide should lift all boats, not just the yachts. When more people have more money to spend, the entire economy benefits. Businesses thrive, more jobs are created, and we all have a better shot at achieving the American dream. Section 6. Taxing the rich, a controversial but necessary solution. Now let's talk about taxes. Nobody likes paying them, but here's the thing. Taxes are the price we pay for a civilized society. They fund our schools, our roads, our healthcare system, and all the other essential services that make our country function. For far too long, the wealthiest Americans have been paying a disproportionately small share of taxes. Thanks to loopholes, deductions, and offshore tax havens, the super rich are able to shield their vast fortunes from the taxman, while the rest of us are left to foot the bill. It's time to end this rigged system. We need to implement progressive tax policies where those who earn more pay more. This isn't about punishing success, it's about ensuring that everyone contributes their fair share to the common good. Think of it like this. If you're driving a Ferrari on a road paved by the rest of us, you should probably be chipping in a little extra for the upkeep. Section 7. Investing in our future. Public goods as building blocks for prosperity. Remember that whole infrastructure week thing? Yeah, it shouldn't be a punchline. Investing in public goods like roads, bridges, schools, and healthcare isn't just about creating jobs in the short term. It's about laying the foundation for long-term economic growth and prosperity. When we invest in education, we're investing in our future workforce. When we invest in healthcare, we're investing in a healthier, more productive population. And when we invest in renewable energy and sustainable infrastructure, we're investing in a planet that can continue to support human life. These investments aren't just good for society, they're good for business. After all, businesses need educated workers, healthy consumers, and a stable climate to thrive. It's time we stop seeing public goods as an expense and start recognizing them for what they are. Essential investments in our collective future. Section 8. Corporate responsibility. Shifting priorities for long-term growth. For too long, corporations have been laser-focused on one thing: maximizing shareholder profits. It's like they're playing a game of Monopoly, where the only goal is to bankrupt everyone else on the board. But here's the thing. In the real world, we're all in this together. We need to shift the corporate mindset away from short-term profits and towards long-term sustainability and social responsibility. This means paying workers a living wage, investing in their communities, and operating in a way that doesn't destroy the environment. It's time for corporations to recognize that their responsibility extends beyond their shareholders to include their employees, their customers, and the communities they operate in. It's about time they started acting like responsible corporate citizens instead of just profit-hungry machines. Section 9. A global imperative confronting inequality for a sustainable future. The wealth trap isn't just an American problem, it's a global crisis. The gap between the ultra-rich and everyone else is widening in countries around the world, fueling instability, conflict, and mass migration. We need to recognize that we're all in this together. The fate of the global economy, the health of our planet, and the future of humanity depend on our ability to create a more just and equitable world. This means working together to tackle issues like climate change, poverty, and inequality, and it means holding corporations and governments accountable for their actions. The wealth trap is a formidable challenge, but it's not insurmountable. By working together, we can create a more just and sustainable future for all. It's time to rewrite the rules of the game and create an economy that works for everyone, not just the privileged few.